They are tearing through the Ukrainian sky. Interceptor drones are entering the arena fast, smart, and ruthless. They home in on the enemy's scent, tail even the so-called Black Shaheeds, and perform flawlessly. One hit and a high-value target is gone. This is a historic breakthrough in air defense. Developers aren't wasting any time and are creating something phenomenal right now. We'll tell and show you exactly what that is in our report right now.
Russia continues to launch a record number of drones during massive attacks on Ukrainian cities. In response to this enemy tactic, Ukrainian engineers have already developed their own solutions. One of these solutions is interceptor drones, which are capable of effectively shooting down enemy targets and cost hundreds of times less than traditional air defense systems.
Based on an ordinary UAV, it can either automatically fly to the sector where the drone is located and intercept it using a camera machine vision. In other words, it detects, locks onto the target, and automatically homes in on it.
In this footage, you can see one of the finished prototypes of the Ukrainian interceptor drone. It quickly gains altitude, accurately identifies the target, and destroys the enemy UAV before it can reach its intended target. Its main advantage is not only its low cost, but also its ability to operate at any time of day and in challenging weather conditions.
The interceptors operate within a range of 30 to 40 kilometers. Well, it all depends on their specific mission.
So generally, the destruction of an enemy target is carried out basically by detonating a fragmentation warhead, or as it approaches the enemy target, a remote detonation, or upon collision with the target, the corresponding warhead is triggered.
This type of drone is equipped with artificial intelligence and a camera with infrared sensors. This makes it possible to effectively detect camouflaged, so-called Black Shaheeds even in the dark.
In our case, we are currently training our artificial intelligence to operate in automatic mode. But in any case, it's important to understand that when we talk about countermeasures, it's crucial, for example, that one operator can simultaneously control 10 interception devices.
The development of interceptor drones began back in 2022. Since then, dozens of different variants have been created, but only now, after thorough testing, have they started to be used in practice.
The main task now is to ensure they can operate up to 3,000 meters, which is the altitude that a Shahed drone can reach. And we're talking about kinetic destruction, meaning a direct hit on the drone and detonation, or detonation nearby.
Such drones have already proven themselves successfully in real combat conditions. On the night of Wednesday, the 9th of July, the enemy carried out a record attack, launching over 700 aerial attack assets. Some of them were neutralized specifically by interceptor drones. The main goal for the developers now is to achieve 70% effectiveness in their operation. This will become a key impetus for launching mass production, which is actively being discussed with international partners. Step by step, we are steadily and progressively closing the significant funding gap for the crucial production of essential drones and advanced drone interceptors, and simultaneously filling Ukrainian production lines with clear, well-defined and actionable orders. We are also actively working in close collaboration with our trusted international partners to ensure that the production capabilities within their respective countries operate as efficiently and effectively as possible for our collective and joint defense efforts, both in the present moment and for the foreseeable future, even after the conclusion of the war. There are different models of drone interceptors, but those that are already carrying out combat missions in the sky cost hundreds of times less than air defense missiles,
which can catch up with enemy UAVs and Shaheeds. And this cost can range from $800 to $1,200, depending on the configuration.
Nevertheless, it should be noted that in any case, the enemy uses a large quantity. And in order for us to be able to independently scale our capabilities and counter such a threat, we need an inexpensive means of destruction.
The developers are doing everything possible to ensure that shooting down enemy targets is as safe as possible for the civilian population.
And something is currently being developed, something quite innovative and kind of hybrid in its design, that will either possess an electronic warfare device on it or will effectively release, a specialized pneumatic net that will successfully capture this unmanned aerial vehicle, thereby causing it to simply fall freely because it will completely lose its inherent ability to fly and maneuver.
According to the expert, there are different types of interceptor drones. Some of them don't explode, but instead physically push the enemy drone, disabling it without causing unnecessary destruction. There are also developments underway for much faster drones capable of catching up with missiles and neutralizing them in flight. Dmytro Shula, Dmytro Kurchenko, Rada television channel. For the summary, there is only one main point.
Mysticism has begun in Russia. A state-of-the-art drone fell right on the heads of Russians. A real sensation. Are Russia's developments really slapped together carelessly and even end up hitting their own people? That's a mess. Putin definitely won't be able to hide these problems. The drone, which looks more like a plane, was supposed to become a new source of pride, but instead became yet another embarrassment. What is known about it and whether the Kremlin will now be forced to pause its production, we'll tell you in just a moment.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The reason for the crash of the latest Russian drone, the Altius, also known as Altair, in Tatarstan was electronic warfare. At least that's the version being promoted by the Ural Civil Aviation Plant, which is still working on the so-called analog project. In the morning, Russians frightened by Ukrainian drones watched a white plane flying in the sky. Most likely, it was a Cessna aircraft conducting visual monitoring. Later, the heavy drone itself took off. However, almost immediately, it landed on a house in a garden community.
You know, for as long as I've lived here, well, around 5 in the morning, that quite once they say it was a plane. And after that, 2 more came around 8:30, I think, and one of them did go. Everything there, the spare parts, everything is written in Russian. We're not sure if it's ours or not. We ran over and tried to put out the fire ourselves with our own efforts. There was an old man living in that house, but he wasn't there that day. He was unlucky.
Was it big?
Yes, a very big circle, about 5 meters, I think.
The Dubki Dacha cooperative where the incident occurred is located not just outside Kazan but in Gisada. This is the descent trajectory of the aircraft as it was approaching the runway of the Kazan aviation plant named after Gorbunov. It is here that the Tu-160 and Tu-22M are assembled and modernized. In addition, the testing of the strike drone took place 1 kilometer from the military airfield in Borisoglepsk, where the Russians redeployed their strategic aviation after the Pavutina operation. In comments to the Russian publication Business Online, the Ural Civil Aviation Plant, which is located in Yekaterinburg and, I remind you, is working on the Altius project, gave its own version of what happened.
Today, the Altius unmanned aerial vehicle developed by the enterprise did indeed conduct a test flight, and the takeoff from the base airfield proceeded as normal. Later, during the flight, satellite navigation was disrupted by unidentified external electronic warfare means. The drone continued its flight using its inertial navigation system. For landing, it was necessary to send the aircraft for a second approach. The landing was carried out in inertial mode. An emergency situation occurred.
The extraordinary incident in Tatarstan demonstrated that Russia has not abandoned its long-term project to create a reconnaissance strike drone analogous to the Glol Hawk. Moscow began the project for a heavy long-endurance UAV back in 2011. At that time, the so-called Design Bureau won a contract with the Ministry of Defense worth $1 billion. 2 years later, the designers presented the first model of the drone. And another 2 years after that, in 2015, it briefly took off from the ground for the first time. The delivery of 2 systems was postponed to 2018, but this never happened. Instead, the general director of the Sokol Design Bureau, Alexander Homzin, was sent to a pre-trial detention center. He was accused of fraud and misappropriation of budget funds. That same year, the Altair project was transferred to the Kazan division of the Ural Civil Aviation Plant. It is unknown how the UAV was completed there, but 2 years later, the Ministry of Defense made a grand announcement about a flight lasting 32 minutes at an altitude of up to 800 kilometers in fully automatic mode. And so, at the end of 2021, the agency announced the successful completion of the tests.
The tests of the long-range unmanned aerial vehicle Altius-RU have been completed.
Moreover, propagandists boasted that the unparalleled development received its own Russian engine to replace the German one, the supply of which had stopped due to sanctions.
The Klimov Design Bureau developed its own VK800V engine, which was suitable not only for the Altius but also for an entire line of light Russian helicopters that suffered from the same problem as the drone. With the same takeoff power of 800 horsepower as the German engine, our design turned out to be dry, meaning it was simpler and more reliable in terms of oil lubrication. It also became even more technologically advanced thanks to the use of hot isostatic pressing. So the last weak point of our Altius was eliminated.
Back then, by the end of 2022, the designers had committed to delivering 18 Russified Altius drones to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Later, they were expecting another 50 there. But so far, as can be seen in practice, only the residents of Tatarstan have witnessed it in action. By the way, according to journalists from the publication Business Online on the 30th of June, a Russian court sentenced Alexander Gomzin, the creator of the first heavy drone model, to 8 years in a penal colony. However, due to the statute of limitations on the case, he will not spend a single day in prison. And one more interesting fact in this story. The Simonov Design Bureau he headed, which was declared bankrupt at the beginning of last month, will also resume its operations.
They don't stand still for more than a minute. Infantry fighting vehicles are operating right now near Chasiv. Constant tension and maximum concentration. They drive right into the very hell of the front line and then rush back to evacuate our guys in time and avoid getting caught under the enemy's heavy fire. Their engines roar. What kind of conditions they have to work in, all about this in the following report.
We deliver supplies, bring in ammo, transport people, and evacuate the wounded. Well, you know, like a taxi.
A taxi?
Of the front line, yes.
Only unlike a typical taxi service, you could potentially come under direct fire and even get shot at during your journey. You're the first ones.
Well, that's the first downside of this job.
This is the mechanic driver of the M113 infantry fighting vehicle with the call sign Martin, an American design from the Vietnam War era. In terms of speed, armor and mobility, it says it's far superior to Soviet APCs.
The gearbox, the steering wheel, the gas pedal, the brakes, the handbrake, and the ability to open and close the ram.
What speed can it reach?
Well, according to the specs, it's 60 kilometers per hour. But it can accelerate up to 80, even 70.
Here it is, the vehicle racing through Chasiv Yar. Up front there's a stuffed toy, a little elephant and a tank.
You load up here, and then to your position over there, they're running to the burned out vehicle. They're loading up. Move it.
This is driver Martin together with gunner Kinder, whom you'll also see up close in a moment, unloading the pencils, that is the infantry, while simultaneously returning fire.
Further, 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 further. Dropped off the pencils, not at the right spot. Drop them off closer, closer. The road is blocked there, I can't go any further.
Always try not to stay for more than just a single minute. Within a minute, we have to unload everything.
You need to have quite a bit of experience to do it right automatically.
A bit on autopilot, a bit with help, a bit with shouting.
Shouting?
Shouting.
And what do you shout at them? Faster?
In my own way.
Just with different words?
Yes. Well, because we need to be faster. The vehicle can't just stand there. The artillery starts firing right away.
Return fire, return fire. To the right, to the left, wherever.
On a single run, several FPV drones can be hunting for this one vehicle at the same time. That's why the soldiers had to make this kind of grill for the M113, as they say now in the East.
It's, well, protection against drones. But when we used to drive before, we didn't have it. We only recently installed the protection. Here. Well, there's a grill installed.
Every time, every trip, something comes flying in, and every time you have to get in as quickly as possible, unload, pick up the people, and get out.
Now on the screen you see a QR code, by scanning which you can support the soldiers of the 24th King Danilo Brigade, who have been defending the front line in Chasiv Yar and the surrounding areas for over a year. This is one of the flanks that the Russians are trying to break through in order to reach and capture Kostiantinivka. The Russians have a significant advantage in forces here.
Well, there's one major downside that's come up here. Right now, in clear weather, even if there's a little rain, we can't get to the positions. Right now, they're flying FPV drones on different frequencies.
Both of them, Martin, the driver, and Kinder, the machine gunner, served in the infantry. Kinder went through Bakhmut. Martin was wounded at the very beginning of the invasion and became a driver. So both of them know very well how important the crews of infantry fighting vehicles are in the army, delivering ammunition, supplies, water, evacuating the wounded, and somehow surviving themselves.
Come on, faster!
Maria Malevska, Alexander Brinza, Ihor Serebrian, Vikna, STB, United News.